What's up, everyone? We are back with a new chaffle recipe this week. As you've seen from the title of the video, we are making a lemon-dill butter chaffle. Now this is, similar to the crispy garlic bread chaffles that I made last year. What I've done is I've made a lemon-dill garlic butter here. We'll watch how I did that in just a couple of minutes, but we'll go over the rest of the ingredients. So we've got our frozen lemon-dill butter here. This week I've actually, I've heard and seen a lot of comments about using like actual mozzarella cheese and shredding it yourself. It's going to be better, so that's what we're doing this week. I've got a bunch of that shredded, and I've measured out 2/3 of a cup of the finely shredded mozzarella cheese. We've got some Parmesan cheese here that's going to help make these crispy chaffles. And then we've got 1 egg, and then I've just got some salt and pepper. So real simple recipe this week. Again, this is a butter in chaffles. You'd be surprised, it does add a fairly good taste, especially if you add other ingredients to the butter. So I know it will melt when we put it in, but that's really, it's not the point of having pockets of butter. It just spreads out in the whole chaffle kind of thing. So we'll get set up, and in the meantime we'll cut to when I made this butter a couple of days ago. So our lemon dill butter that we're using for our chaffles this week, super easy to make. Really all we're going to do is we're going to take some softened butter here, let this sit out for a while. We've got maybe 3 tablespoons of butter here, so it's nice and soft kind of thing. And really all we're going to do is we're going to zest some lemon into this. Now we're not going to, I don't think we'll use any juice for this. We don't really need to add the juice flavor. The zest will do a really good job of getting us what we want out of this. And the idea is that we're going to make a butter that we can freeze, and then we can cook it into the chaffles. This is the same sort of idea as when I made garlic butter chaffles. I made some garlic butter and then froze it and then cooked it into the chaffles, and it worked out really good. So let's just get some zest in there. Really do need to invest in an actual zester. This would probably be easier than using this box grater, but for now it does work. So we got a good amount of zest in there, as you can see, kind of thing. We'll make sure we get the rest of it out of the grater here. Now for the dill part of this recipe, I did try to find some fresh dill, but it always seems that when you go to the grocery store, they want to sell you like a bushel of dill, and I don't really have the need for that much fresh dill, so we're still going to just use some of this dried dill weed here. It'll still give us a good flavor. I was kind of hoping we could do fresh dill this week, but it is what it is. So put a good amount of that in, maybe half a teaspoon kind of thing. And then really all we're going to do is we're going to start combining that together. So like I said, when we first started here, it's really kind of simple. This is just a step that we need to do, and then put the butter in the freezer for a good amount of time. I'm probably going to wind up having a day or two between when I make this and when I actually make the chaffles, so I want it to be nice and solid. And that's really only so that the butter doesn't melt immediately when you put it in the waffle iron kind of thing. Now obviously the butter does melt when you cook it in the waffles or the chaffles, but if it's frozen, it gives it a little bit of time to give it some flavor. So that's really about all we're looking to do. We're just looking to incorporate the lemon zest and the dill into our butter. We'll scrape the fork off here, make sure we get all that off of there kind of thing. And then what I'm going to do here is we'll even just use the the cling film or saran wrap, whatever you want to call it here, that I had covering the butter while it softened. And we'll just lay that out. And then we're just going to take the butter and put it right in the saran wrap here, right in the middle, just like that. If we can get it off, just use our fork there. Make sure we get the last little bit out of the bowl. Like that. We'll set those aside. So basically we're just going to take the butter here and we're just going to try and roll it into a cylinder kind of thing, just like that. So we're just going to roll it up and then fold the ends over. And obviously this is going to be more than I need for the chaffles that we're making, but you know, it'll be a little bit left over. Would go good with, you know, to brush on top of chaffles, or even to put on steaks when they're cooking. So we'll go ahead, we'll put this in the freezer, and we'll be back to do the next part of this recipe once it's frozen. We've got our 1 large egg mixed up here in the bowl. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to add our shredded mozzarella cheese here. And again, this is actual mozzarella cheese that I shredded. I'm not using the pre-shredded cheese this week. We'll mix that in, and I decided to use the fine shred on the grater just to make it a little bit easier to mix in with the egg kind of thing. And we're just doing a basic chaffle recipe this week, so we'll probably only get the two chaffles out of it. If you want to get more chaffles, then you can obviously add a second egg and then more mozzarella cheese kind of thing. And then, like I said, we're going to make these crispy chaffles with our parmesan cheese hack that we use to make the crispiness. So we've got our egg and mozzarella mixed in there. Now we'll add our salt and pepper into the mix. We'll give that a good mix around. Now again, you could add other seasoning to these if you want. I want to just make this a simple recipe this week. Last couple of weeks we've been getting a little bit complicated, and I just wanted to get back to making, you know, just a base recipe that you can easily make your own. So seasonings in. We can put the Parmesan aside because we need that when we're cooking. So what we'll do, if you can hear that, so we've got a solid butter compound here with the lemon and dill. So as you saw in the clip where we made the butter, it's just butter with lemon zest and dill. I needed to use the dried dill weed. Unfortunately, it's kind of hard to find fresh dill here right now. So all we're really going to do is I'm going to take, sorry, don't mean to blind you there, but I'm going to take my grater, and we're just basically going to grate some of this butter compound into the chaffle mix. So you can see it's going right into the bowl here. Now I probably won't wind up using all of this butter because it's probably more than we really need for this recipe. But it'd be good to put on other things like steak or burgers or whatever. Anything you like to add butter to. Give it a nice fresh flavor. I can smell the lemon while I'm doing this. It definitely gives it a nice fresh odor. So, you know, we can probably put a little bit more in there. Again, the butter's going to melt when we cook the chaffles. We're going to expect that. Just like when we did our garlic butter chaffles last year. First thing that happens is the butter melts, but all the other flavors stick around in the chaffles. So we're basically doing this right before we cook them so that the butter doesn't melt too much, because we do want to add it frozen. So all we're really going to do is fold that butter into our mix here. Sort of just like that. Give it a couple of stirs to get, just to distribute it throughout the batter. Like that, again, we don't want it to melt before we start cooking it. So that's about it, really. So we'll get the Dash Minis warmed up and we'll start cooking these chaffles. Okay, now that our 2 Dash Minis are preheated here, we'll open them up and we'll get putting these chaffles together. Now again, we're gonna start off with some shredded Parmesan cheese on the bottom. We're gonna put some on the bottom and the top because obviously we want both sides of our chaffles to be crispy. So just put some down just like that. And then we'll add our chaffle batter here. Spread out evenly on our Dash Minis. Sort of like that, and we'll flatten it out a little bit because again we want to add some more Parmesan cheese on top. Just like that. And if you haven't seen my video about making the garlic butter chaffles, I'll link that in the top corner of this video. It's definitely definitely one to check out. It was really tasty. So that's about it. We can close these up and give these chaffles, you know, 4, maybe 5 minutes to cook, and we'll be right back to check them out. Okay, so I think our lemon-dill butter chaffles are done. The steam has pretty much stopped coming out of the waffle irons. So let's open them up. Nice and golden brown. And you really can smell the lemon in these chaffles. And they're definitely crispy. So as always, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull these out and set them on a wire rack to cool off a little bit before we try them. That just helps them not get soggy. You know, there's no point in making crispy chaffles and then putting them on a plate and having them turn out soggy. So we'll set those aside and we'll come back in a couple minutes and we'll see how they turned out. Okay, so our crispy lemon dill butter chaffles have cooled off enough to give it a try. As you can see, I've cut a slice of that butter off and put it on top of the stack of chaffles here. Again, we only made 2 this week, but you could make plenty more just by increasing the quantity of the ingredients. I'm gonna let that melt a little bit more. It's actually getting pretty soft, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna give this one a try. As you can see, it's nice and crispy. I don't know if you can hear that on the microphone, but both of the sides are nice and golden brown. So we'll open that up, just break it in half, just like that. And like I say, when these are cooking, I could really smell the lemon, which was amazing. So let's give this a try and see how they turned out. Okay, so those are really tasty. You know, you can really taste the lemon in the dill, and the butter gives the chaffles a really rich flavor. And then of course the crispiness is next level with that Parmesan. So definitely a win. I would give it a try. Let me know what you think down in the description. Hope you enjoyed this video. Just something I wanted to try for a while. Nothing super special, but a little bit different. So if you did like the video, consider giving it a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it. Consider subscribing and turn on your notifications because we put out new recipe videos every week and you don't want to miss the new one when it comes out. So that's about it for this week. Again, hopefully you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next week for another video. Keep on thriving, my friends.